for my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
You believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Welcome back to the show. This is the NBA Trade Deadline podcast, breaking down the trades that have already occurred and what we can expect later today from the NBA Trade Deadline. The trade deadline is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 2 p.m. Austin time. So this one is going to break down a little bit of the trades that we already have seen and what we can expect to happen later in the day. So without further ado, thank you for clicking on the podcast link. Let's talk about it. So Tuesday, we already had one big trade or bigger trade, and it was a 4-team trade that sent Capella to the Hawks and brought Robert Covington back to the Houston Rockets. That entire trade consisted of the Rockets getting Covington, Jordan Bell, and a 2024 second-round pick via the Golden State Warriors. The Hawks got Clint Capella and Nene. The Timberwolves, this is the only team that I really liked from this entire thing. They got Malik Beasley, Hernandez Gomez, Evan Turner, Jared Vanderbilt, and a 2020 first-round pick via the Brooklyn Nets lottery protected. The Denver Nuggets get Gerald Green, Shabazz Napier, Volahan, 2020 first-round pick via the Houston Rockets. So the Houston Rockets, I thought, got fleeced in this deal, and it comes down to the fact that they got Covington back, which I like, a 6'9", 3-and-D player, a guy that, when you talk about the best 3-and-D players in the league on very good contracts, he would probably be up there. But he doesn't mix with the Houston Rockets system. It doesn't make sense. And I get it, and we only have a couple hours left to the trade deadline, so I understand that there's a chance that we're going to see Daryl Morey, the GM of the Rockets, make more moves. I trust that. I can see that happening. But for the most part, you go and you get a guy who is 6'9", he's probably going to have to play small ball center in a couple lineups for you. PJ Tucker is 6'5". They're already talking about him playing small ball center for the Houston Rockets. And you're competing against teams like the Lakers, who have Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, LeBron James. All those guys are going to body up. They're going to go big in the playoffs. You look at the Clippers, who have Montrezl Harrell, who is going to be a problem in the playoffs. And then, of course, you got Kawhi and Paul George going to the rim all the time. So you have a bunch of players in the Western Conference, not to mention the Nuggets, who were also in this trade, and the Utah Jazz, who both have very good big men in Jokic and Gobert. So you're looking at the Western Conference, and it feels almost, it's not old school basketball, clearly, because you don't have big men, you don't have the Roy Hibberts of the world, but you have enough big bodies in the paint that you need to be able to have a rim protector, and B, a guy that can body up those guys. And Capella was that. And I'd seen Capella play in the playoffs. And granted, there were a couple games that Harden had bad nights. That was the reason that the Rockets lost. This Rockets team clearly goes the way that James Harden goes. And Capella having a bad game does not help that situation. But for the most part, he was a very solid center for the Houston Rockets. So getting rid of him doesn't make a ton of sense. And for the Hawks, who were able to bring him in, I love that for him. Because I'm looking at their roster, and you got, they get rid of Alex Len, but you also have a very good situation here where they can, they have a center who has playoff experience. And I think that Trae Young is looking across the league and thinking to himself, we have a better team than the Suns do right now. We have a better team than a lot of the Eastern Conference teams do right now. We're just young. John Collins, and I'm telling you guys, I've been on his wagon from day one. I love John Collins. I think that he's one of the most talented big men in the league, and we're going to see it in the future because this team, I think, constructed right now, this Atlanta Hawks team, is going to make the playoffs next year. Cam Reddish is still really young. He's got a long way to go, clearly. They got rid of Jabari Parker, which means the entire floor space is going to open up, and we're going to get to that trade in a second. But you have a situation now in Atlanta where they have a center who has playoff experience. We have a point guard who is a motor, and I don't love anybody comparing him to Steph Curry because I think Steph Curry is a special player, and I don't think that that's fair to Trae Young, but he is a special player. too, and I think that he's going to be something in the very near future. So Atlanta, it looks like they won this trade. Now, the Timberwolves, very interestingly, they go get Beasley and Turner and Herman Gomez, and you look at the way that their roster is, and I don't anticipate any of these players to stay on their roster for more than a couple hours, because this is the team that has been trying to build a trade for D'Angelo Russell in Golden State and try to bring him in, which we can talk about right now because I think that that's a very interesting point, and I think this is a trade that's going to happen hopefully later today, but at some point in the near future. I could see this happening. And I've already gone back and forth with a few friends, and I understand the other side of the argument, which we're going to get to, but the concept of this idea, or to conceptualize this trade, is that we know that Karl-Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Devin Booker, who plays for the Phoenix Suns, we all know that they're best friends. We know that they have a similar relationship that Wade, LeBron, and Bosh had in that aughts. And we know that they want to play together at some point. They've said it on the record before, that they want to get together at some point in their career and play. Now, you look at the way the Miami Heat got Dwayne Wade, they drafted him, and then when LeBron and Bosh were ready to leave and move to a new team, they said, hey, come down to Miami. Now, granted, Minnesota is very different from South Beach. I will give you that. But they already have the best player in that trio, I think. I think Karl-Anthony Towns is the most talented player in that trio. So if you have one of the three parts of this big three, then you need to go get the other part two, so that when part three becomes a free agent or requests a trade, you can go get him. So Karl-Anthony Towns, you get D'Angelo Russell, who's a very good point guard. You go get Devin Booker in a couple years when he's a free agent, and you're looking at one of the best teams in the Western Conference, especially in a league right now where it's a two-star league, where every team has 2 stars, not 3. The potential of getting a prime Devin Booker on this team in a few years could make the Minnesota Timberwolves a legitimate title contender. I think they already should have been a title contender. I think the coach is holding them back. I think Karl-Anthony Towns' game is kind of holding them back. Shooting too many threes, not being very aggressive on defense. Those are the things that I think are holding the Timberwolves back. But D'Angelo Russell, making your superstar happy, is very important. We can already look at Philadelphia, where Embiid wanted to keep Jimmy Butler. The 76ers wanted to keep Tobias Harris. And already Joel Embiid's pissy and complaining about floor spacing. So you want to keep your superstar happy. The Timberwolves in this 4-team trade, getting back to it, gets the pieces who I think can help make that trade happen. Now, it's been reported that Golden State wants a first-round pick. They got a first-round pick from the Brooklyn Nets in this trade. The Timberwolves did, so hopefully they can send that. But for the most part, I think that if we're going to judge winners and losers in this, unless the Timberwolves can get Russell from Golden State, I think they are another loser in this trade. And the Denver Nuggets, which didn't make any sense to me why they were in this trade. It feels like they just got rid of some cap space. Gerald Green might be a good piece moving forward for him. Not moving forward, but going into the playoffs, I mean. I think that he'll be a good, hopefully, addition. Shabazz Napier, solid backup point guard, I guess. But for the most part, I think that the Nuggets got some pieces they're probably going to waive. I think that they're more of a buyout team. I think that they're going to be looking at the buyout market. So now let's go to the other big trade that occurred yesterday. And that would be the Kings trading for Dwayne Dedmon. This is clearly a bottom-out out move. They're not going to... They're not doing anything, the Kings. So they get Jabari Parker and Alex Len. Alex Len's been one of the more disappointing NBA players in the last couple of years. He's a top 14 pick. He was a lottery pick, and he has not been able to do anything with the Suns or the Hawks. So now he's on the Kings. So now if you're playing bingo, if you're playing for the worst franchises in the NBA, you're looking for possibly... I don't know. You've already checked off a lot of... Charlotte might be the last box that you're looking for playing for tanking bingo. So Alex Len goes to the Kings. They bring in Jabari Parker. I like Jabari Parker. I thought that he was going to have a much, much, much better career than he's had to this point. The ACL injuries clearly have held him back. The ACL injuries would hold any young player back. But when he said that he doesn't play defense, he don't get paid for playing defense, I think that put a lot of GMs and NBA teams push them the wrong way. Because you look at guys like Steph Curry, who are not good on defense by any means, but they are such a generational offensive talent that they can kind of get away with that. James Harden is kind of in the same situation. He's always been a very, very, very excellent offensive player, and defensively, Harden has gotten better. And I think that Jabari Parker should kind of model his game after Harden. I know that's easier said than done, but I think that he should model his game after Harden. In that, you go in the offseason this year and you say, I know that I can score pretty much anywhere on the court. Like, if we're being completely honest, like, clearly Jabari Parker is not as good as James Harden. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is that you need to go in the offseason and focus on defense, focus on getting your body right, focus on getting bigger so that you don't get pushed around on defense. So, Dwayne Dedmon goes to the Hawks. This is a good round pick for him because I think that he'll get waived too pretty soon. 2 second-round picks help. This isn't a super loaded draft class like last year's was. I thought last year and the year before's draft classes were very loaded from 1 to like 30. I thought there was a bunch of very good players, and it's already showing in spades that there are a bunch of very good role players out of these last 2 drafts. This draft class, I'm not completely sold on. I think that there's going to be a couple of players in the lottery and maybe a couple players in the lower first round who might make an immediate impact. But for the most part, these 2 second-round picks, they're going to be good to go get you some G Leaguers, go get you some developmental guys, and hopefully the Atlanta Hawks can figure out what to do with them going forward. So then you look at the 76ers, Bucks, and Warriors trade, right? So the Warriors trade Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III. The Warriors get a 2020 second-round pick from Dallas, a 2021 second-round pick from Denver, a 22 second-round pick for Toronto. So essentially, the Warriors sold 2 of their players. I don't think Alex Burks and Glenn Robinson III are going to do much for the 76ers. I really don't. The 76ers, this isn't the type of trade that's going to make them that much better. To be completely honest with you, the only way they could have gotten better at this trade deadline is if they could have traded for a time machine and went and got Jimmy Butler back, because that guy is a monster. The trade right now, that's not going to do much for you, I don't think. I don't think that go getting those players are going to help that much. The last trade we need to get into is the trade that didn't go official yesterday, but probably will go official sometime today. It's the 2/3 team trade that will send Andre Iguodala to the Miami Heat, Justice Winslow to the Memphis Grizzlies, and potentially the Oklahoma City Thunder might slip in there and get Gallinari sent to the Heat as well. So clearly this has been the biggest NBA story that we haven't talked about this season just yet because of the NFL and everything else. And I know that we do a daily podcast, but it's really hard to get in here and do 15 different podcasts to talk about every single individual storyline of every single individual sport. So for those of you that haven't been keeping up, I'll just do a quick synopsis. So this summer, the Golden State Warriors were trying to kind of get rid of some money because they were bringing in D'Angelo Russell in a KD trade. It was a 1-for-1 trade, so they were going to sign KD to a 5-year contract or whatever contract they signed him to. Then they were going to send him to Brooklyn. They were going to bring back D'Angelo Russell so they would get something for Kevin Durant leaving. So they bring in D'Angelo Russell, and they needed to get rid of some players, so they sent Andre Iguodala, the 3-time champion, the Finals MVP of 2015. They sent his ass to Memphis, which, I will say this, if you gave me the option to move from Silicon Valley, which has vegan tacos, to the Memphis Grizzlies, who have the best barbecue in the country, in Memphis, I would not complain. But instead, what Iguodala did was he said, I don't want to play for this team. I want to play for a title contending team. I have been a title winner now for my career. I want to win more championships. Send me to a place that I can win. So immediately everybody said, LA teams, the Clippers and the Lakers. We thought, oh, maybe this guy could go to the 76ers. If they found a way to move off some contracts that are god-awful, I'm looking at you, Tobias Harris. So that didn't happen. He sat out for half the season, went on a book tour, did a media tour, kind of tried to convince the Fox Sports' and the ESPNs of the world that when he retires that he could be a really good studio analyst, which I agree. But at some point we're going to run out of people who we can put on television. There's only so much airtime for everybody bye-bye Kendrick Perkins, I guess. I don't know. But Iguodala has finally come to the point now where they're getting rid of his ass because he said he wasn't going to play for Memphis. He was going to sit out the rest of the season. Even though Memphis is a playoff contending team, even though that John Morant has been one of the most fun young players to watch this season, he's the rookie of the year by far, even though Jalen Jackson Jr. has been one of the better young big men of the league, even though Dylan Brooks has been so much fun to watch, you're looking at a guy in Iguodala who doesn't want to play with the young pups. He wants to go play with the big dogs. So he's going to Miami to play with Jimmy Butler and that culture for Pat Riley. And they signed him to a 2-year extension, potentially, that's going to get him $30 million a year. So, very excited for that. Very excited that Iguodala now gets to play the remainder of his career in Miami, even though Memphis is a fine city, and I would much rather prefer to live there, if you ask me. But he goes to Miami, potentially. And the reason I say potentially is because Miami wants to make this a 3-team trade, and the Oklahoma City Thunder need to get wrapped up and bring in Gallinari, which I want to point out here that if you look at Gallinari's career, going from the Knicks to the Nuggets to the Clippers and now potentially to the Thunder and to the Heat, you look at his entire career, this guy was supposed to be one of the better small forwards in the league. When he got traded from New York to Denver so many years ago in the Carmelo Anthony trade, we thought that this was a fair trade because Carmelo clearly was a all-world small forward. He was in the same class as LeBron. When we talk about great young players, we thought that, okay, this isn't a lopsided trade because you get Gallinari back, who was a very solid, young, productive small forward, and his ceiling was pretty high. Then he went to the Clippers, and I think all of us were very disappointed in the way that they never could get anything off the ground. He was one of the many, many, many problems with the Clippers team that just never could win because they never could have a small forward. And now, as his career is kind of almost winding down, I don't know what he's going to do for the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat want to bring him in. They want him to be the backup small forward, I can only assume, because if you look at the way their roster is constructed, they have plenty of guys on that roster who are very talented, playing at very good positions. So I don't know why they're trying to make a move to bring in Gallinari. Now, maybe they can go and try to get somebody else. There have been talks that they're going to try to trade Myers Leonard, who I thought has been a very good defensive big man for him. But again, at the same time, you're looking around the league and you're thinking to yourself, how far can this team go in Miami? Because I really like Boston, clearly. I think Boston has proven so far this season that they are the team to, I think, beat in the East. Honestly, the best team by far from top to bottom, I think, in the East. Then you look at Milwaukee, who has Giannis and Chris Middleton, who is, in my opinion, the weakest Robin of any Batman-Robin combinations we've had in the past couple of years. He is very average, in my opinion. I don't know how he made another All-Star game. But you look around the league, are they better than the 76ers? I would love to see a Miami-Philadelphia rivalry again. I'd love to see that kickstart. And it would be a lot of fun to watch Jimmy Butler take it to Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons. I still like the 76ers, I think. I still like Milwaukee. I still like Boston. So is this trade for Iguodala going to make that much of a difference? I don't think so. I think that this is going to be a team that is going to be a 4 seed, maybe potentially even get to the 3, but I don't see them making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And is that a failure? No. I think that establishes a winning culture. I think they're a couple players away, and they're going to make some good moves. Getting rid of Hassan Whiteside this offseason was loads much better a deal than anybody is giving them credit for. And Pat Riley's a smart guy, and he'll be able to construct more trades. But for the time being, this looks like the trade that's going to go down. So I don't love it from Iguodala. I don't love what he did. But at the same time, it makes sense. You want to play for a winner. Granted, Memphis is winning right now, so that doesn't make a ton of sense. But I want to play for a winner. I want to play for a place that doesn't have terrible weather. So the other player who got moved is Justice Winslow, who, if you asked me how old he is, I would have said probably in his mid-20s. No, the guy's like 24, so he meshes perfectly in with the rest of those really young Memphis Grizzly players, Ja Morant, Jalen Jackson Jr. This Memphis Grizzly team, low-key, might be one of the best young teams in the league. And I love that we're having this conversation now, because if there's a way that we can get Dallas and Memphis at some point to play each other in the next 2 or 3 years, with Luka still being really young and Memphis still being super young and the rest of this roster being very talented, I want it to happen. Because if you gave me a rankings of the best young teams in the league, I would say Atlanta, Dallas, and Memphis. Those are the 3 best teams right now, under 25, I guess. And Luka has his MVP season, I think, has started to kind of I'm not going to say flatline, but it's starting to plateau, where I think that we're going to go back to the is it Giannis's year to win? I think he's going to win back-to-back. I think that's fair. He's been playing incredible this year. LeBron in LA, I think, is going to get a couple of votes just because of the passing of Kobe, and if the Lakers make it to the 1 seed or make it to the 2 seed, I think that's going to be a very juicy storyline. I think that giving him the MVP would make sense from a storyline standpoint. And then Luka, clearly. But if you're looking at the young teams, Ja Morant and Trae Young are 100% going to replace Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook on the all NBA teams in the next 5 years. We're going to get straight from Chris Paul making it every single season on the All NBA teams to Trae Young. And you can count on it right now that is going to be the natural transition. It's going to be incredible. So the other player, let's get into trades that we want to talk about, or the trades that we want to see. Clearly, we want this Andre Iguodala trade to be finalized. I'm really looking for Marcus Morris to get moved from the Knicks. I think that's going to be a move that's going to happen pretty soon. The Spurs probably aren't going to do anything, even though they should get rid of DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. Which, side note, let's do a little sidebar here. I got an argument with a guy saying that DeMar DeRozan needs to be an all-star. That's absurd. If you've watched the Spurs play this season, I know Spurs fans want to say, well, he's gotten a lot better and he's had a really good 6 weeks and blah, 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 blah. Look, the All-Star game is for the best players. Is DeMar DeRozan one of the better players in the league? Sure. Is he a top 30 player? Maybe. He's not better than Devin Booker, who got snubbed. He's not better than Bradley Beal, who got snubbed. He's not better than Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook or Donovan Mitchell. The Spurs did not have an all-star this year, and that's fine. There's no shame in that. Now, when Tim Duncan was playing, when Manu Ginobili was playing, when Tony Parker was one of the better young point guards in the league, and of course when Kawhi Leonard was there, it only made sense that those guys made the all-star game because those were some of the best players in the league. DeMar DeRozan is not a great shooting guard. He's a good shooting guard. You can win games with DeMar DeRozan. The Spurs are doing it. You also can lose a lot of games with DeMar DeRozan. LaMarcus Aldridge is a husk of himself. It looks like in the Invasion of the Body Snatchers sometimes, where he just doesn't know where he's supposed to be on the court. When he came to San Antonio from Portland, he was supposed to be a big man who could space the floor. People were saying that he was fat Alonzo Mourning. He has not shown that at all. He has been an average back-to-the-basket player. He has been a guy who's going to get you really good numbers. But again, having good numbers and having low wins only shows me one thing. That you can put up stats on a bad team. You can put up empty numbers. If your team's not winning, I don't really care. You look at Russell Westbrook, who the Rockets have been up and down the entire season, but he's averaging 27, 8, and 7 on a roster with James Harden. James Harden is averaging 35 points per game. That number needs to go down. Russell Westbrook's numbers need to stay the same. He's having a very solid season. He's getting a lot of flack for a team that only has 2 guys. And now they don't even have Capella. So you look. That's the sidebar. That DeMar DeRozan does not deserve to be an all-star. That if you think that, you're an idiot. That doesn't make any sense. So I would have liked to see them make a trade. Of course, I would have liked to see the Warriors get rid of D'Lo. I want to see that one. I want to see that happen as well. The 76ers. Tobias Harris's contract's too freaking big. You can't get rid of him. But there's a player in New Orleans who I think would be a perfect fit for the 76ers, but the problem is that you got to get rid of part 2 of your big 3. You got to get rid of Ben Simmons. I would like to see that trade happen. I'd like to see Jrue Holiday come and play for the 76ers. I think he spaces the floor better. I think he's a better distributor, maybe a little bit better passer even. And Ben Simmons can come down and play with Zion Williamson. And again, they don't really space the floor very well either, but at least he has his own team. And Brandon Ingram has been very good this season too. I don't anticipate seeing him get traded, especially as he makes his first All-Star game. So you could potentially get a big 3 of Ben Simmons, Zion, and B.I. You get Jrue Holiday out of there to the 76ers and see what happens there. That is a trade that I would love to co-sign and see happen. So, trade deadline later today. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to do it for the show. We're probably going to have another podcast come up and just talk about all the NBA trades that happen. I broke down a lot of them right now, but if anything else crazy breaks down and anything crazy happens, you can follow me on Twitter at Andrew_Zimmel if you don't already follow me there. But for the most part, it's going to be, I think, a very quiet deadline. I don't see a lot of teams making any big moves. But if they do, come back here and we'll break them down for you. Thank you so much for listening. Tomorrow is Film Friday, so we're going to talk about, I think, Marriage Story. I think that's the movie that we're going to break down. I wrote another review, so that's a lot of fun. And I think we potentially have another interview podcast coming up with a former volleyball player, but I don't know if we can nail that down yet. And, of course, we're going to talk about the XFL and everything. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for listening. Please continue to listen. Please continue to send this content to all your friends. And remind each other how much you mean to each other. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.